everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Advent devotional on our third day here, December the 3rd, continuing out of our book, All the Good. Our scripture today is Isaiah 40, verse 3, and our author is Matthew L. Kelley. So Isaiah reads, "A voice cries out, 'In the wilderness prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God.'" When the first child of Prince William and Kate Middleton, the future King and Queen of England, was born, there was a guy ringing a bell and proclaiming the birth of their son outside Buckingham Palace, wearing clothes, a hat, and a wig that seemed more appropriate 300 years ago. He didn't have an official role. That he was not affiliated with the royal family or the British government was quite beside the point. An important person was coming onto the world stage, and he decided he bore the responsibility for letting everyone else know about it, whether anyone else approved or not. When the president gives an address before Congress, the sergeant of arms of the House gets the honor of announcing, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States." This is an official role, but almost no one knows who that individual is any other day of the year. These modern examples suggest that there is something important about announcing the arrival of someone who is significant and plays a consequential role in the lives of everyone else, whether the role of announcer or herald is official or not. Unlike at the outskirts of Buckingham Palace, and unlike in the chamber of the United States Congress, the prophet Isaiah announces the arrival of someone significant in places that are, well, not so significant. The desert and the wilderness are other ways of saying the middle of nowhere. In Isaiah's time, the important places were gone. Babylon had sacked Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and generally demonstrated that anything and anyone Israel considered important didn't matter one bit. A herald for the deity of a defeated nation? How silly. Yet this is what Isaiah says. Contrary to the logic of all human societies, a messenger announces the arrival of a significant person who isn't considered remotely significant by everyone else. In the Christian tradition, we see this passage echoing in the Gospels with John the Baptist. He wears animal skins and eats locusts and honey, just like the prophet Elijah. He's not at all subtle in recalling the heroes of Israel's past. As obvious as John the Baptist is in what he's doing, he's only setting the stage for someone else to show up who is likewise not exactly what everyone else is expecting. Jesus of Nazareth, the one who is God, who moved into the neighborhood, as it's sort of put in John 1:14 in the Message translation, didn't meet anyone's expectations. The small number of Judeans who expected a Messiah to show up and restore the kingdom of Israel were looking for a military leader. And Jesus of Nazareth didn't fit that mold. The way we human beings are inclined to read this passage from Isaiah, both the place and the person don't exactly work. The wilderness, the desert, aren't a proper place for a significant person to show up. And a wandering preacher who isn't part of the religious system, a person who gets executed by an occupying empire, a guy who really doesn't amount to much in most people's eyes, does not match what we think the prophet is saying. Yet this is what God is doing. When we see something that defies our expectations of what God is up to, let's take a second look. Maybe, just maybe, someone is preparing the way for the Lord in such a way as to remind us that God is God, that we are not, and that's exactly what God intends. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow on December the 4th for our fourth day as we continue our journey through Advent.